Greetings! I'm here in the uncharacteristically sunny Courtney Park with one of our authors, Chris Tetreault-Blay, and he's kindly offered to answer a few questions for us. So, what was the first thing that attracted you to Circle of Spears in the first instance?
It all came out of a conversation that I ended up having with Mark Norman on Twitter, oddly enough. I very rarely use Twitter, and I was on, just happened to drop into one of the Devon book hours that the Devon Book Club run, and noticed a tweet that Mark had put on there saying that he was reading my book, House of Courtenay. And that was, for me, one of the first times that I'd spontaneously had someone say about reading my book, so I sort of commented on it, and that he commented on one thread that was in the book, one of the stories, which does get some kind of notoriety, and we sort of got chatting from there, and he mentioned that he was an audiobook producer, and it's another avenue that when I write my books, I either look at them as, I imagine them as films, or I can hear the story being told, so having an audiobook was actually quite a natural progression. I'd never really knew how to go about it, so all of a sudden having someone who actually produced them instantly got me interested. So he put me he sent me some links so that I could listen to some of the samples that you guys did, and I was so impressed with the quality, the talent, and that, and I instantly I knew I wanted Circle of Spears to do my book.
So, had you had any experience of audiobooks before?
Only as a listener, to be honest. Again, like I said, it's something that crossed my mind one day being able to do as an author. I was quite late in discovering the beauty of audiobooks. I was always a bit sceptical because I thought it was always better to just have your own take on it, your own voices in your head as you read a book, and I thought an audiobook would detract from that or send me on a different path. But I then discovered James Herbert and started by listening to a couple of his audiobooks, again probably only about 4 or 5 years ago, and I listened to him while I was driving to work, and I was sort of taken away into the story, so that sort of spurred me on from there, and I ended up listening to a few more, and then conveniently enough discovering yourselves.
Working as you do a lot in the horror genre, do you feel that the audio format gives that an extra dynamic?
Yeah, I believe it does. I mean, I think with any genre, an audiobook would bring something different to it. Horror is great on the page because I think you leave it up to the reader's imagination. That can be just as scary as seeing it on the screen. But hearing it on an audiobook, you've got a voice that can conjure up that atmosphere and that feeling. And that was one of the things that drew me to yourself, Sam, to do the voiceover for my book, because I thought you had that horror quality in you, like Hammer Horror. I remember describing it to my wife when I heard you first time, and I think that absolutely, then you've got a feeling what it is that you're listening to, and having that kind of that drama, that intrigue in the voice draws you in and just has that atmosphere in the background.
What did she think when she heard it?
Yeah, she again absolutely agreed with me. She thought it was perfect, really. Any of you three would have done justice to my book, I believe, giving it different qualities, but that was definitely what I was after, is that kind of classic horror feel. So.
Thank you very much.
Right.
So for House of Courtenay specifically, what was your immediate inspiration for that?
It actually started off as my attempt at writing a short story, which didn't really work out. So I didn't intend to write House of Courtenay as it stands straight off. I started off with one of the stories I had in there. Omidia was the first book outside of my Wildemore Apocalypse trilogy that I attempted to write, and it came off of one of the real sort of phobias that I've had since, that I've grown up with, and it's one that that a lot of people can relate to. I won't give too much away. But it started with that, and then I wrote another one specifically for Halloween, which touched on my fascination with the underworld and sort of my perception of what it's like, what happens when you pass over. And then I found one common thread that I could actually use to tie the two books together, the two stories together. And in the process, I had the moniker of House of Courtenay had existed in some form with me since I wrote my first book, Acolyte, because it's one of the roads that I used to sit near in my car each day to write. The whole Courtney thing seems to have stuck with me. It started off I was gonna have a band one day that I was gonna name House of Courtenay, and then I had my email address I put it to. So I thought, I've got to put this out there. I've got to have a book about a house. I didn't really know what the quality was, what the premise was, but I love things like House on Haunted Hill and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where they're all set in a house in the middle of nowhere, which is very sinister. And the actual second story in the book, The Killing Floor, came from the cover that I had designed for the book, because I was just going to keep it as Vermidia and Trick and Jack together in this sort of this universe that they existed in. And then my wife actually said to me, there's a chair outside the house on the cover, so you need some kind of relevance to that chair, otherwise it's just a bit random, like she does. So I ended up writing The Killing Floor, which again I won't go into, but that came from the inspiration of that object and how I could tie that in. So really it was all kind of, it's a very organic piece of work. I didn't set out and plan it out. The stories just came to me, and then I was able to just sort of tie them together with this image of this house that housed this history surrounding all of these three stories.
Having had House of Courtenay done now in audiobook, would you consider having any of your other titles done in that same way?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'd like all of them to be done eventually one day. I think the Wildemore Apocalypse has the potential to be quite an interesting one, to see someone else's sort of spin on the characters there, but also the other standalone Trick and Jack book, Black Gang, I would really like that, because that can tie in with House of Courtenay. So again, the same sort of atmosphere, same kind of intrigue and terror. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. And do you have anything that you're working on at the moment, or anything that you'd like to currently plug?
Yeah, why not? So in June, my second re-release under Britain's Next Bestseller is going to be coming out, and that is I'm having the Wildemore Apocalypse trilogy tarted up, re-released. That's going to be the Sowing Season. That's out on, I think, the 5th of June. You can pre-order it now on Amazon.
Speaking of reading books, do you have anything that's currently topping your to-read pile?
Yeah, I'm currently reading a book called Comatose by Tony Estrello, which is the first book from one of the fellow authors at my new publisher, Cranthorpe Milner, who's going to be doing my children's picture book later this year. All about sort of lucid dreams and sort of, I guess alternate realities. I'm not far enough into it, but it's very, very intriguing. And then I've also got to follow that up with, I'm halfway through Tombland by C.J. Sansom, which my kids bought me for Christmas, and determined to finish that before the year's end. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Steve Alton Meg series as well. I know he's working on another one of that and another one for The Lock, so I'm waiting for those to come out. Fingers crossed.
Cool.